So for the last two problems, we're going to have to do something, we're going to have to do a little bit of algebra first. Okay, they're not quadratic, they're not square roots, and they're actually 2 parts per piece. So the first part on each one is going to be algebra. We're just going to solve using algebra, and then we're going to use the value that we find to find the consumer surplus model. Okay, so the first one says the demand function for a certain brand of mattress is given by P equals 350 times E to the negative 0.08x. Okay, find the number of mattresses demanded per month, so find the quantity, if the unit price is set at $200 per mattress. So this is just straightforward algebra. So I know that the price that they want me to set is 200. So I've got 350 E to the negative 0.8x. And I need to get to the x. The only way I can get to that is if I go into log world. Okay, that will allow me to drop that down as a coefficient, but what I'm going to do first is get rid of that 350. So I'm going to divide both sides by 350. And honestly, I'm just going to let my calculator do the work. So I now have 200 over 350 equals E to the negative 0.8x. Okay, so now this base is by itself, so I can go in and take the natural log of both sides. So that now allows me to drop down that exponent as a coefficient. So I've got the natural log of 200 over 350. Yes, I know I can reduce that. I'm just going to let my calculator do it. And drop this out front. Okay, that leaves 0, or what I had was this times the natural log of E. But remember, the natural log of E equals 1. Okay, so that just simplifies out. And now I can divide both sides by negative 0.08. And that'll leave me with x equals. So I'm just going to put this whole thing in my calculator. When I do that, I get, one moment please, the natural log of 200 divided by 350 is, and then I'm going to divide that by negative 0.08. And I get 6.995. Okay. So it says find the number of mattresses. Well, obviously we can't use 6.995 because that's a partial mattress. So I'm going to round that up to 7 mattresses. That 7 is going to be important in just a second. Okay. But remember that we're dealing with hundreds of mattresses. So for your answer for the first one, we found an answer of 7, but remember that represents 700 mattresses. Okay. And now we're in the same position that we were last time. Okay, so what I have this time is I now know that my limits of integration are going to go from 0 to 7. So I'm going to go from 0 to 7 of my original function, which is 350 times E to the negative 0.08x, okay, dx. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my 350 out front, and I'm going to have to use some U-Substitution. Okay, so my 350 is coming out front. I'm going to go from 0 to 7. I have an E to the negative 0.08x dx. And my U is going to be that exponent. Okay, so my du is going to be negative 0.8 dx. So I'm missing the negative 0.08. So I need this. So I'm going to balance with division. Okay. Now, since we're in U world, we might as well stay in U world. So I'm going to go to this equation and change my limits of integration. Okay, so I've got 0. Well, that's still going to be a 0. So I have 0. And then when I multiply this by 7, I get negative 5/6. Okay. So my upper limit of integration is going to be negative. And now this is just e to the u du. So my lead is this mess right here. Okay. And I'm integrating e to the u du. Well, the integral of e to the u is e to the u. So I now have 350 over negative 0.08 e to the, okay, negative 0.56, and then minus, I'll just leave that up front, e to the 0, which is 1. Okay, so when I slap this thing in my calculator, I get 350 divided by 0.08 is times negative 1, because I missed the negative. All right, so I get a negative 4375. Okay, times this stuff in parentheses. Okay, so I have e to the negative 56, and then close that, minus 1, close that, and I end up with 1875.96. So my answer right now as it stands is 1875.96 and some other numbers. But remember, we've got to subtract stuff off. So what are we subtracting off? We're subtracting off 1,400. Okay, we had 700 mattresses. I'm sorry, but we're in terms of 7. Oh, that was going to be way too big. All right, so we're multiplying 7 times 200 for the price. Okay, because we're in terms of 100, so I'm not going to multiply by 700. This is already recognizing we're in terms of 100. So I'm going to subtract off 1,400, and that's going to give me 47596 0346 03 blah blah blah. But I am working in P is the unit price in dollars, and so we need to multiply that by 100. Okay, because it's in hundreds. That's what I just said. All right, so I end up with 4759603. 4759603. All right, so for the next one, we're going to kind of flip it around a little bit. We've been doing consumer surplus. Well, now we're going to do producer's surplus. So if you will look in the ebook, you'll find the equation for it. What we're going to do is take the price times the quantity minus the integral. Okay, so before it was the integral minus the price times the quantity. Now we're going to flip that. Okay, so first of all, what is our setup? Our setup is P equals, we're buying mattresses. So 200 plus 60 e to the 0.06x. Okay, so the first part is going to be straight up algebra. Find the number of mattresses the manufacturer will make available in the marketplace if the unit price is set at $300. P is 300. So here's 300 equals 200 plus 60 e to the 0.06x. So I'm just going to go for solving for x, which means we're going to have to go into log world again. So I'm going to subtract 200 from both sides. That's going to give me 100 equals 60 e to the 0.06x. Okay, divide both sides by 60. So what's gone here, 10 over 6 reduces to 5/3. So I have 5/3 equals e to the 0.06x. And now I'm in a position where I can take the log of both sides. So the natural log, and that allows me to drop that down. So remember, what I actually have is 0.06x times the natural log of e, but the natural log of e equals 1. So really this side just turns into 0.06x. So right now I've got the natural log of 5/3 equals 0.06x. Divide both sides by 0.06. Any number divided by itself is 1. And I'll find out that x equals, so the natural log on. The natural log of 5/3, find out what that is, divided by 0.06 gives me 85137. So 8.51376. Okay. So remember that we're reporting in hundreds. So it's not 8.51, it's 851 mattresses. But we're going to use this amount right here Because remember on the last problem, we just used the 7 when we were integrating because it rounded really pretty from 6.99. Well, this one doesn't round really pretty. So we're going to actually use, instead of just using 9, we're going to use 8.51. Okay, so I needed this to say 851 mattresses. Okay, but when I integrate, my limits of integration will go from 0 to 8.51. Okay, so how do I set this part up? I want to use the result of part A, which we just found, to find the producer's surplus if the unit price is set at $300 per mattress. So what I need to do first is do our little multiplication bit. Okay, so I've got 8.51 times the price of 300. So times 300 gives me 2554.13. So 2554.13. I took 8.51 times the price of 300. When I integrate, the answer that I get for integration will be subtracted off of this. Okay, so instead of us doing integration minus cost times quantity, we're going to do cost times quantity minus integration. Okay, so remember him, we're going to come back to him. So right now what I've got is the integral going from 0 to 8.51 of 200 plus 60 e to the 0.06x dx. And I'm just going to go ahead and integrate. Okay, so the integral of 200 is 200x. Okay, plus, now here's where it gets weird. I know that I need a 0.06, so I'm going to have to balance by dividing with a 0.06. So I've got 60 divided by 0.06. I'm doing U-substitution in my head. So 60 divided by 0.06 is 1,000. Okay, so what I have is plus 1,000 e to the 0.06x. And I'm going to take that from 0 to 8.51. Okay, so it's going to get slightly messy. 200 times 8.51 is, and then plus 1,000 times e to the 0.06 times 8.51 gives me, so when I substitute in with 851, I get 3368. 3368.290. And we'll just go on. 669. Minus, when I sub in a 0, this will go to 0. This won't. Okay? This will be e to the 0, which is 1. So I'm actually just going to subtract off 1,000. When I substitute in a 0, 200 times 0 is 0. Plus 1,000 e to the 0 is 1. So I've got 0 plus 1,000 times 1. So it's just minus 1,000. So I'm going to take 1,000 off of that. And I end up with 23. Why did I have to use a calculator for that? 2368, 290669. Okay, so what's our last step? Our last step is we just found out what the integration was. Remember, I need to subtract. I have this amount minus the result of the integral. So I'm going to come up here, 2554.13. So 2554.13 minus that amount. So what do we get? 2554.13 minus 2368.29 gives me $185.84. $185.84. But remember, we are dealing with hundreds. We're dealing in hundreds. So when I deal in hundreds, that turns it into 18,584. 18,584. Okay, so that is your final answer. And that is it for chapter 6.